And hello and welcome back to America's Forum right here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bach.
And I'm J.D. Hayworth. We're joined still in his beneficence by New York Times bestselling author Nick Tate to talk about health issues. Nick, it's always great to have you here on Friday to talk about these things.
My pleasure, J.D.
One huge issue coming up here. This sounds so exciting. Scientists developing a blood test that could detect Alzheimer's long before a patient develops symptoms. The test, developed by the Georgetown University School of Medicine, tests the levels of 10 fatty chemicals, commonly called lipids, in the blood. The levels of these fatty chemicals breaks down as membranes of the brain cells are affected by Alzheimer's breakdown. Research shows that analyzing the lipid levels could predict with 90% accuracy whether patients would eventually develop Alzheimer's. And joining us now to discuss this research, Dr. Gary Small, who's a professor of psychiatry and biobehavioral sciences at UCLA. Dr. Small, we thank you very much for your time today here on America's Forum.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
So
Go ahead, sir.
Dr. Small, tell us how promising you think this study is at this point.
You know, I think there's a lot of new research that comes out, and all of it is promising. It just has to be replicated, and we have to put it in perspective. So I think that people need to be cautiously optimistic with every breakthrough that they see on the news or read about in the newspaper.
Now, earlier here on this program, we talked about the increasing amount of Alzheimer's cases around this country and what it is going to cost to treat these. One of the questions that we asked our colleague Nick Tate earlier is this just because Alzheimer's is becoming more and more, it's a sense of awareness among folks and it's being diagnosed more, or there's something else at play here?
One of the biggest factors is that we're aging, and age is the single greatest risk factor for developing Alzheimer's disease. By age 65 or older, the risk is about 10%. By 85 or older, it can be as high as 30, 40, or almost 50%. Now, thanks to medical technological breakthroughs, we're living longer, but we're not necessarily living better because of Alzheimer's disease.
Dr. Small, as you were mentioning these studies and what happens next, and you also mentioned advancing age, and I guess the great thing is we do see this increase in longevity, but are we going to have to wait until we're old to see some sort of blood test? I mean, with the current regulatory structure, could this be a long way off, or do you think it's something that could be fast-tracked?
You know, it's hard to predict, and I know that the regulatory agencies are working to fast-track some of these discoveries to get them out there so people can benefit from them. And I'm optimistic. I think that we've got a lot of very bright scientists. We're focusing our efforts, but we could use more funding. It's clear that Alzheimer's disease research is underfunded if you compare it to other major problems like cancer and heart disease.
Doctor, I was going to ask you about that. Why do you think it's underfunded? Is it because you believe that, in fact, the number of deaths from Alzheimer's is undercounted on death records? We talked to a specialist here about a week ago who suggests that there may be as many as 5 or 6 times as many actual deaths from Alzheimer's, because of the way that deaths are recorded on death certificates. Alzheimer's is only like number 6 on the list of deaths. Do you think that that's one reason that we don't see more research and more support for that?
You know, I think that that is a reflection of the ageism that we have in our society and the lack of awareness of Alzheimer's as even being a late onset disease until the late 1960s. We used to think that people just got senile as they got older. That was a normal part of aging, but it wasn't until 1968 that we recognized there was a late onset form of Alzheimer's disease. So we've had a lot of catching up to do, but there still is an element of ageism in our society and a lack of focus on these kinds of illnesses.
Well, maybe as the baby boomers get older, counting myself among that company, that may change as a greater demand for new treatments and diagnostics. I had another question about what you can do now. As you suggested, it may be a while before we actually see a blood test that I can get from my doctor, like I now can get a blood test to test for cholesterol or blood sugar. What can people do in the meantime? What does the research tell us about what you can do to either slow or prevent the onset and the progression of Alzheimer's?
I think the research is compelling that there's a lot we can do to protect our brain health. the MacArthur study of successful aging concluded that about a third of what determines Alzheimer's disease or cognitive decline as we age comes from genetics. That means that 2/3 is non-genetic and may be under our control. So I recommend that people get physical exercise routinely. We know that it pumps oxygen and nutrients to your brain cells and protects them. Mental exercise also probably protects your brain and can improve those age-related memory slips. Trying to manage stress better is critically important. Stress is really the enemy of brain health. And nutrition is critically important. In the average American diet, we're not getting enough omega-3 fats from fish, nuts, and flaxseed. We're not getting enough fruits and vegetables that are antioxidant and protect brain cells.
We all have these, well, not all of us, but some of us have these senior moments where we forgot where we left the keys. When do the symptoms, what kinds of symptoms should we be looking for that really flag, in the absence of a bio test like what we're talking about here today, really flag the potential for a more serious memory issue, dementia, Alzheimer's, etc.?
It's difficult because those senior moments gradually segue into mild Alzheimer's disease. So it's often difficult to differentiate them from differentiate senior moments between normal aging or incipient Alzheimer's. I think if you're concerned, it's always best to check with your doctor early rather than late, because the sooner you can make a diagnosis and initiate treatment, the better will be the outcome.
Dr. Small, if there's just one thing we should be doing for our brain health, what would that one thing be?
One thing is start exercising. You don't have to become a triathlete. Just 20 minutes a day of brisk walking will lower your risk for Alzheimer's.
All right, doctor's orders right there. We're all going to go take a walk. And
eventually.
Just kidding. Well, after the end of the show, we'll be back. Thanks, Dr. Small. Great talking with you.
My pleasure.
Really do appreciate it. Yep, I'm glad I was on that elliptical trainer this morning. There's the message right there.
What's good for your body is good for your mind as well.
Amen.
All right. Well, we want to hear from you, of course. You can write in here on America's Forum. You can find us on Twitter at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. Are you optimistic about these new developments for Alzheimer's disease? Email us, connect@newsmaxtv.com, or find us on Facebook, facebook.com/NewsmaxTV. Much more ahead here on America's Forum when we come right back.